You talk about him as if he were a man. That part of him died years ago. Halloween 4 stars Donald Pleasance, Ellie Cornell, Danielle Harris, and is directed by Dwight H. Little. What's up, guys? Welcome to Halloween 4 Revisited. I can't believe I'm saying those words. I've been planning Halloween 4 Revisited for probably 6 months now. Ever since I did Halloween 2, that's what's nice about these Revisited reviews. It's basically a review that I do again. And it's usually for a couple of reasons. One being, when I first did the review, I wasn't, I guess, as seasoned as I am now, and that sounds really pompous to say that, but it's also for production value. I just wanted to add a little bit more to the review, and in Revisited reviews, I can say whatever I want. I don't feel constrained, and of course, it's, you know, I can talk spoilers all day. I can go into specific scenes that I like, you know, all that good stuff. They're usually longer than normal reviews, and Halloween 4 is probably, out of all the Halloween movies, the most important to me, because it is the one that got me obsessed, and I mean obsessed, with this franchise. I've talked to fans, especially on Killer Flicks, who are probably more obsessed than I am, which I never thought that was possible. This franchise is everything to me, and a big reason for that is Halloween 4. And let's just talk about the reason why I'm so obsessed with Halloween and this movie. I was 15 years old. If you remember, Halloween 3 had come out quite a few years before this, and it pretty much was the death knell to the franchise for a little bit. It was not well received at all. Michael Myers was not in the movie, and so the last time we saw Myers was in Halloween 2. So that's a good, what, like 6-7 years before Halloween 4. And then I remember, you know, this is back when, you know, way before the internet and all that. And so I just remember hearing like rumblings of Michael Myers is coming back. As a matter of fact, it was a TV spot.
10 years ago, Halloween, evil had a shape. Terror had a night. And now he's back.
6 bodies, Sheriff, that's what I've seen. I tell you, Michael Myers is here in this town.
Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers.
He's come home to kill.
Halloween 4, rated R.
Starts Friday, October 21st at theaters everywhere.
That was the first indication that Myers was coming back. I wasn't a big Halloween fan at this time, and there was something about that TV spot that got me interested. And it really was Myers. For some reason or another, Myers was portrayed as like the ultimate evil, if I remember correctly, on that TV spot. Now, this is going back to, you know, when I was 15, so it's cloudy, but there was something about that everybody got excited that Myers was coming back. And so here I am, I'm sitting in the theater, opening night. I don't believe I think I went by myself. You know, I really wanted to see this movie. There was an excitement in the air. This was a packed theater. Everybody wanted to see Myers return. As I'm watching this movie, it was like dead silence all the way through, but it was a good silence. Like, you could tell that everybody was completely immersed in the events and what was going on. And the first thing I want to talk about is that beginning scene when we see Michael in the hospital bed. He's completely bandaged up. Right away we know this is from the events of Halloween 2. He looks like he's completely harmless. They transport him out. He's in the ambulance, and then in the middle of the ambulance ride, this scene was directed perfectly, because I remember sitting in the theater, everybody was nice and calm during this scene. We're going to transport Michael, and then we're going to get our movie going. And then all of a sudden, just boom! Myers hears that he has a family member that is alive. And it's like he just wakes up. It's like the evil just, you know, arose from his body. And his thumb goes right into the forehead of one of the paramedics. awesome, and it was scary as hell. Everybody in the theater was just like freaking out. Like everybody jumped immediately. Like, wow, this movie is going to be awesome. And the tone of this movie was really dark. They were not playing around. They weren't saying, okay, we had those movies in the past, let's do something completely different, which does sometimes work, but let's make this really dark, really scary, and let's do not poke fun at Myers. As a matter of fact, let's don't poke fun at anybody. Let's make this feel as real as possible, because let's face it, if you were in a situation like this, there'd be nothing funny about it, and this definitely adheres to that rule. But Mustafa Akkad, God rest his soul, he is like the godfather of the Halloween franchise. He was the one that brought this thing back to life. He wanted to bring back Myers in a big way, and he wanted to go back to the basics. He used those exact words, back to the basics. And he wanted to pretty much follow the template of the first movie, which can backfire because you don't want to be too much like the first movie. And this does follow that format. It really does. But it does add some necessary new things to the plate that make it interesting, that make you want to see the story continued after. It brings new elements to the storyline. And that being, Laurie Strode has died, or at least in this movie, it's presumed that she's dead. And her daughter, Jamie, played by Danielle Harris, who was 10 years old when she did this movie, she is being cared for by her foster family. And really her sister in this movie, her foster sister, is played by Ellie Cornell, and that is Rachel. Now let's talk about those two characters for a second before we go forward. This is another reason why Halloween 4 is probably one of the best, if not the best sequel out of the whole franchise. Those two characters. I think out of all slasher movies I've ever seen, having a core bond like that between two characters, be it, you know, a romantic couple, a set of siblings, they were like sisters together. Rachel as a character was really kind of a mother to Jamie, you know, a caretaker of her. And she is so likable. Really one of the most likable horror characters I think I've ever seen on screen. Really, there was just something about Ellie Cornell. She was so relatable. She was the girl next door. And as a matter of fact, they had Kelly Meeker, played by Kathleen Kinmont, to kind of offset that, to be that other girl that, you know, maybe geeky types won't have a chance with, like Wade, maybe.
Fuck off, Wade.
But Ellie Cornell, just so likable. As a matter of fact, when I saw this, I preferred Ellie Cornell over Kathleen Kinmont, just because of her personality in this movie. You know, it's hard to convey personality on screen, to make that character feel like a real person, and she really did feel like a real person. Then you got Danielle Harris, who is this 10-year-old girl, and I believe she actually went up against Melissa Joan Hart from Sabrina the Teenage Witch and won the part. Child actors can really make or break a movie, not just a horror movie. If they're not good actors, the movie can completely fall on its face. Fortunately, Danielle Harris does such a great job in Halloween 4. When she's screaming, you really feel like she's scared for her life. She doesn't feel like she's acting. And I've heard behind the scenes that some of that was kind of coerced, for lack of a better term. Dwight H. Little did scare her in that closet when she sees Myers. But you know what? At the end of the day, she still pulled out a great performance. Now, next up, let's talk about Loomis. I've talked about Loomis ad nauseum in the past. And, you know, I've always stated that Loomis is probably one of the most important characters, and is a big reason why the first Halloween is, you know, arguably the greatest horror film of all time. You know, obviously there's a lot of different factors that fit into that, but having a character that is almost as crazy as Myers himself, but you can't help but root for the guy, that is Loomis. Donald Pleasance always took this franchise so seriously, you know, and a lot of people probably wouldn't, but you could tell he really loved that character of Loomis and always looked forward to the next sequel and what he could bring to him. This is the beginnings of where Loomis starts going into like crazy land, even though he's done that in the past, but here he takes it to a whole new level. He's obsessed with Myers.
You're talking about him as if he were a human being. That part of him died years ago.
And he'll do whatever he can to protect Rachel and Jamie from Myers, even more so than the cops. I love that scene when he is with Sheriff Meeker and they are in the police station where Myers has just pretty much cleaned house Terminator style. Sheriff Meeker says, "What are we dealing with here?" And Loomis says, "Pure evil." That is a really chilling scene, and it sets up what Myers is as a character. Sheriff Meeker, even more than Sheriff Brackett, I think, is the best sheriff character out of the whole franchise. He's another big reason why Halloween 4 works so well. He wasn't that guy that was constantly saying, "No, this guy's not a threat." It was immediate. He jumped into action as soon as Loomis came into town and said, "You have a major problem on your hands. We need to address this." And he didn't question. He just went right into protector mode. Now we're going to talk about Myers and how this is one of my favorite takes on the character. George P. Wilbur is my favorite Myers. I've always heard a lot of complaints about the mask in Part 4, and I can't really argue that. But I remember when I saw this movie opening night in the theater, for some reason the mask did not register with me at all because of how intense this movie was. What was going on? The mask, it served its purpose. Not once during this movie did I say, that just is a ridiculous looking mask. So for that, I have to give it credit. And I think the reason for that is because of George P. Wilbur's performance behind that mask. There was just something menacing and lumbering and almost force-like in his portrayal. I'll even say I think his portrayal feels more inhuman than Nick Castle's performance in the first movie, and that's a tall order. It really is. But I dare you, watch Halloween 4 and tell me that is not personified evil, because that's what Myers is. And one of my favorite scenes with Myers is with the character Brady. He's in the house and he is coming after Rachel and Jamie, and Brady is the only thing standing in the way, and poor Brady. That is my favorite kill out of the whole series, and it's so simple. It looks like it cost $1.50 to produce. It's just George P. Wilbur picking up Brady and crushing his face. And when you hear that neck snap, it's perfect. Perfection. And I think those are the best kills, when they feel real, they feel simplistic. There wasn't a weapon being used in the scene. Myers killed him with his bare hands, and to me that's badass. And now the major thing that I wanted to talk to, if I talked about anything in terms of Halloween 4, it would have to be Bucky. Where in the hell did this guy come from? Bucky is just, I don't even know what to say. Bucky's like the silliest character. I guess if you have one aspect of comic relief, I guess it's Bucky. Even though he played like a normal guy, he's an electrician or a power guy. Because he had that name tag on the top of his helmet that said Bucky, for some reason that just stuck with everybody.
All right, I'm on the telephone to the police right now. Don't you even think about leaving.
And real quick, I wanted to just share a story from one of the members of Killer Flicks, Jason Smith. When Halloween 4 was being filmed, the prop master, his name was Bucky. That guy, his name was Bucky in real life. And I guess he had a crush on Jason's mother. And so Jason Smith was able to get some nice loot from that whole thing, including one of the masks from the movie. And I have his story pasted up here so you guys can pause it and read it. And it's great. That's one thing I love about Killer Flicks. There's so many people with all these great stories from horror movies. And this was just one of those. And it's so cool to read this, being that Halloween 4 is like one of my favorite horror movies. But lastly, I want to talk about the ending of this movie. And this ending is really a big reason why I got so obsessed with this movie. And I think the ending of this movie does what all horror movies should strive to do. Make you think that the main characters are completely safe, that the evil is gone, and that they can move on with their lives. And then present something that completely changes that. And that's what the ending of Halloween 4 does. It's a nice bait and switch too, because you think, or at least I thought, that Myers was still alive. Why wouldn't you? And you see the eye holes over the camera, just much like the first movie. And again, I'm just sitting in the theater watching this thinking, well, they're up shit creek. and you see Myers walking down, or what you think is Myers, and then all of a sudden you just hear this scream. And just wanted to point that out. You don't see anything. All you hear is a scream, and that makes it even more chilling. From the second I heard that scream, a chill went down my spine. I literally got scared in the theater. And then Loomis comes up the stairs. He sees Jamie standing there, covered in blood, with the mask on. And it's like this whole thing just started up again. It's just the ultimate nightmare. And Loomis's reaction... is really what sold it for me. It wasn't her face. Back then I thought it was her face, but years later I thought about what really scared me in that scene. It was Donald Pleasance. He was Loomis in that scene. He wasn't an actor. I literally felt like this guy was just in complete shock at what just happened, and he was just defeated because now the evil has started up again. And so I get chills just talking about that scene. And that scene scared me so much that it gave me nightmares for years after. Myers is the only character that has ever given me nightmares. None of the other ones have. And that's the reason why I'm obsessed with this franchise. And that's the reason I have to give Halloween 4 a Trapped on an Island. I almost gave it a unicorn just because of how awesome this movie is to me, how much it means to my life. It really kind of deserves a unicorn, but I know I'd probably get some flack, but it's my opinion. I'm going to give it a Trapped on an Island though. Love this movie. So that's it, guys. We got through Halloween 4 Revisited. We talked quite a while about this movie, and as you can tell, this movie's special to me. So post in the comments, let me know what you guys think of Halloween 4. Most of the time when I hear people say, you know, what their top 3 Halloween movies are, Halloween 4 is either number 2 or number 3 for everyone. And it's my number 2. Also, guys, come over to Killer Flicks where we talk horror all day and every day. Look for my next Halloween Revisited review. It's probably going to be a Revisited / VHS review, and it's going to be for Halloween 3. Anyway, guys, if you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.